Hey guys, I want to make a relatively short video talking about my experience with taking a drug called Propecia 2018 in October. Took my first pill in late October. 6, 7 hours later, I instantly didn't feel like myself. I felt as if something had been switched off inside my brain. Over the next few months, it turned into inability to read, horrible memory issues. Fast forward 11 months later, it has all gotten worse. I have significant cognitive impairment. I have trouble reading, understanding information, uncontrollable panic attacks, and horrible anxiety. Physically, I've had extreme muscle wastage. So yeah, I kind of got hit with a kitchen sink.
All right, what is going on, guys? This is Mark Millick here with the Moral Medicine YouTube channel. So today we are going to be speaking to Damon. Damon, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. It's been a while since I've done an interview like this. So.
Yeah, man, this is kind of a unique story here because, you were featured on the PFSNetwork's podcast back about 3 or 4 years ago, and you took your first and only pill. I think it was back in 2018, and obviously since then a lot has happened. So yeah, if you want to just jump into it, man, and start telling your story, we're all ears, man.
Okay. Yeah, so I took one pill. Well, I guess I had mild hair loss. This was 2018, so I was about 23 years old. I'm 30 now, so I was like 24. I can't do the math on that, but had like very minor hair loss. If you went back to my older videos, pictures, or whatever, they're out there. I didn't have bad hair loss at all.
Right.
Talked to a physician assistant for less than 5 minutes, and then walked out with a prescription for finasteride. Saw a few videos, stuff online about PFS. I thought it was complete bullshit. I actually remember thinking it was like an internet hoax.
Right.
I really thought, and there was nowhere near. So this was 5+ years ago, man. So
right.
The difference in the amount of material on it now it's night and day.
Yeah.
There were like 2 videos tops when I looked at it, but yeah, I thought it was bullshit.
Yeah, as we all thought.
Yeah, man, I took they're 1 milligram pills, and then it was like generic Propecia.
Mm-hmm.
Took 1 pill, and then you go back and watch my older videos, but it was probably I took it like 2 or 3 p.m. and by midnight that night, I felt just radically different, man. I didn't feel like the same person.
Yeah.
And it got worse from there for a long time.
That's the thing, man. I mean, I've read your story so many times. I mean, you took 1 pill, and I think you started feeling spacey. You threw the rest out, I think, that day. Is that, if I'm remembering back correctly, is that right?
Man, I felt so, yeah, man, I couldn't get around an apartment I lived in for a couple months. I lived with my buddy.
Yep.
It was, man, you might as well have been walking through somebody else's house. Like, it was crazy. You can't make this stuff up. It was as if I, took some kind of crazy drug. And I just, I felt that way for years, man. But I had to put on gloves, and then I poured all the pills out to make sure, like, I just took 1, that I wasn't tripping or anything.
No other contact, then, yeah.
Threw them all out, and yeah.
It's amazing, Damon, because, again, I followed your journey kind of from the beginning. I've looked at all your posts on Propecia Help, and I've watched your videos as well. I mean, the thing that I think you started to notice first was that your body just started to change over the course of several months. I mean, do you mind kind of explaining what that was like? I mean, you mentioned you lost a lot of weight, your skin changed. Kind of mind giving an overview on what happened?
Yeah, so I was, other than school and studying at that time, I was an avid weightlifter.
Yeah.
That was kind of the only, I didn't really have too many hobbies at the time. I lifted weights a lot, and that was That was kind of what I was into.
Mhm.
And I weighed a certain amount consistently throughout my early 20s.
Mhm.
I had a certain level of energy. I had a diet, drive, a lot of drive when it came to studying. I
Yeah.
read a lot. I would read. So I was an exercise science major at the time. I would read a lot of papers around those topics, and overall very energetic.
Yeah.
And overnight, when I took finasteride, and then after the next day and forward, man, I felt I literally felt like a zombie. I felt like I was dying
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
every sense. I remember putting them in a spreadsheet at the time, but I had about 30 to 40 symptoms
Wow.
overnight.
Yeah.
And I would say, maybe 15, 20 overnight. And then within the next 6 months, I had 30 or 40, and all of which got worse over the next few years.
Did anything eventually stabilize for you, or you? I mean, you just kind of said it. I mean, it just kept getting worse for you over the course of time. Did you ever, at some point, reach a point of being stabilized?
I would say some things stabilized and some didn't.
Okay.
Um, I would say overall, my body did reach a baseline
Okay.
with those symptoms, but it took about 3 years. Took about 3 years of not every day feeling like I was getting worse.
So you went from being this, I mean, really highly androgenic guy. You love to work out. You were into weightlifting. You were an exercise science major, which I was an exercise science major for a year when I was going to college. Not an easy major, obviously. I can't imagine going through something like that one with PFS. I mean, there's no way I could be able to focus or concentrate or learn new information. So this progressively got kind of worse for you until after about 3 years you stabilized, and then uh, I don't want to do the interview for you, but I mean,
Mhm.
an SSRI at one point, and then that sort of recrashed you.
Yeah, yeah. So
Talk about that, yeah.
yeah. So 2018 took a pill. I had terrible. So, man, I lost a lot of weight.
Mhm.
Um, I couldn't lift 10-pound dumbbells without them feeling just extremely heavy. Had no energy. Um, Food would run right through me. My digestive system was completely wrecked.
Mhm.
Um, it regressed me in like every way to like I was 17, 16-year-old kid, man. Even my voice, I literally felt like I was dying every day. It would be 80 degrees outside, and I would walk outside in a hoodie because I was freezing.
Wow.
Um, and my body could not regulate temperature. My skin got dry. My gums started receding. I've had to have a gum graft on my lower since. Man, you name it, I've had it. Sexual issues were the least of my concerns, but all of that stuff changed for me.
Yeah.
And then the anxiety, you can't even describe it to someone, man. It took me a long time to be able to go into a grocery store or somewhere public without having a panic attack.
Unbelievable.
I still do. I still do, but it's not as bad.
Yeah.
And then I've talked about it in some videos and stuff, but I was doing physical therapy school during this.
I can't even imagine doing that, man.
Um,
You're going to be a strong person to go through PT
it,
school, even as a healthy person, but to have PFS and to go through PT school, I mean,
it
it's
sucked, man.
impossible. I can't even imagine.
It sucked, but in my opinion, even with some of those symptoms, you can establish some workarounds.
Mhm.
But the symptoms are so variable. I think that I got hit hard, and I know that some people get hit a lot harder, and in some cases, it probably is not feasible. For me, I had to establish. So I had to study probably 3 to 4 times and put in 3 to 4 times the amount of effort
Yeah.
that I normally would, and I knew that the whole time. It made it very difficult.
Mhm.
But thank you, man. Yes, that was not easy,
Yeah.
and I'm a practicing PT now, and it's still not easy. So
That's that's incredible, man. Yeah, I mean, I really commend you for still pursuing what you wanted to do and getting through school and getting to this point here. That's just incredible. So when you were going through PFS, though, I mean, you're still going through it, obviously, but did you try to? Were there any protocols or anything you tried to remedy it? Did you try supplementation? Did you go to doctors? I mean, what did doctors say? I got so many questions here. I'm just
Yeah. No, it's a complex thing, man, because I've been in this for since October 2018, man. We'll be coming up on 6 years soon, and I've had you touched on it a little bit, but I had a secondary crash
Yeah,
about 4 years after that one, and I will touch on that.
sure.
Um, yes, I went to a ton. I've been to a ton of doctors, man, since the first few months after, and then a few years after, and even now after the second crash. One thing I never did was try hormones. I
Sure.
was like 24 at the time, man, and I didn't think and still don't think it's rational to inject synthetic testosterone and hormones.
I agree. Yeah.
If you even say that, it just doesn't sound like a good idea, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So I tried a few things like Clomid, didn't help. In fact, it gave me pretty severe anxiety.
Mm,
Tried it for a couple months.
yeah.
Um, and I just tried to live a healthy lifestyle. I mean, I took a ton of supplements, man,
Yeah.
20, 30,
Yeah.
from vitamins, from stuff I've read online about natural hormone boosting stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I switched, I wouldn't even eat cow dairy anymore. I switched to like goat dairy
Mm,
and, went through this whole process of, I reacted to everything I ate. So there's, when your body's that screwed up, man, how do you, I don't eat, you can't navigate that. I couldn't anyway.
no, you can't, man. I mean, your body is essentially impervious to everything, to testosterone, to vitamins, to supplements. There's nothing you can do, and your body's not processing anything, you know?
I
And
didn't feel benefit from any specific thing that I ate, did, or any vitamin. I can't say for the time that I took them, anything was helpful specifically.
but you were disciplined though, man. Like you really tried to focus on your diet, focus on an exercise regimen, supplementation, try to get good sleep, and you did everything you were supposed to be doing, and your body still wasn't responding and healing the way it should have been. I mean, that's incredible, man. You said you ended up taking is it Clomid? Is that right?
Yeah. I took Clomid for probably 3 months. It was low
Okay.
dose, and it didn't do anything but give me extreme anxiety.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of guys take that. Is that like a natural testosterone booster, or what does that do exactly?
Yeah, it's a the way that the endocrinologist, and I'll touch on that too, so I
Sure.
don't forget that just how many specialists I've seen,
Yeah.
and how many things that have, how many like lab tests and stuff I've had done.
Mhm.
I think Clovid's an LH analog,
Okay.
so it works on that feedback loop somehow. I'm not an endocrinologist, obviously, but it tricks your body into producing more testosterone,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
for me, it gave me a ton of anxiety, and it felt like I had a lot of I guess like nipple burning
Okay. Sure.
that I had at baseline at that time. I had, that was a big issue for me, but it seemed to make that worse.
I think it's important to highlight that because a lot of guys talk about with certainty, like if you take Clomid, if you take Proviron, if you take testosterone replacement therapy,
Mm,
your body will recover. This is all this is. You just got to get your hormones
right.
down. You did everything you could
Yeah.
have possibly done, man. And not, if anything, it just made you worse. It didn't even help you. It just it
Yeah.
made you
You
worse.
know, my rationale was I had so many symptoms, and my body was so out of whack
Yeah.
during that time.
Mhm.
The way that I thought about it, there's literally no telling what could have happened if I put synthetic testosterone in my body.
Dude, I am
That
too.
was the last thing I was going to do.
That I'm the same way, man. And some guys have tried it. Some guys have been royally wrecked by putting TRT. Doing
Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
yeah, and it's not to say some guys don't improve. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to sound like I'm being biased here, but there are a lot of guys who just get destroyed by trying to put testosterone in their body. I mean, I've tried HCG. I'm actually on HCG now again. I'm not seeing any real
Yeah.
improvements or anything. It seems like it's like the safest alternative to taking, basically anything else. But man, nothing helps, man. Nothing helps. And I've got a strict diet too. I've gone gluten free. I tried carnivore for a little while. I've gone, keto or ketogenic. I mean, I've seen like minor improvements with things like that, where my brain fog dissipates a little bit, but it never lasts. Because
Yeah.
the second I put a carb back in my body, all of a sudden my brain fog comes back. There's nothing I can do to remedy it. Um, So yeah, man, it's just some people just aren't going to heal through these natural treatments. And I think, you told me before that your body was somewhat getting something's got better over the course of a couple of years before you had your second crash.
Mhm.
But you said it was time, if anything. Like there wasn't anything in particular you could attribute that to. It was just giving your body the time it needed to heal. But even then, it only got marginally better. So, um,
Yep. I would say the time, and even then, I mean, man, it was up until I did take another medication, it was like 4.5 years.
yeah,
And some things, I mean, I had stabilized and reached a baseline, but I still had like chronic anxiety,
right.
depression, and yeah, the time helped with some things, but it more than anything, I would describe it as kind of finding a new normal, more than going back to your previous state. It was a new normal. It wasn't recovering.
It's unfortunate because at some point you have to, at least for the time being, accept that that this is your current state and that you may not get better right now, and that's a tough pill to swallow, man. Because again, you went from living this pretty androgenic life, man. I mean, you were motivated, you loved working out, you were going to school. I mean, you had friends, a social life, and then all of a sudden that changes literally just overnight. I don't know how you accept that, how you come to terms with it. I mean, you need to a certain extent, but man, it's just really tough. It's traumatic, is what it is. I don't think
Yeah,
people realize just how much trauma goes along with this, man. And again, from just a simple short term exposure for you is all it took, and your life completely came crashing down around you. And that happens
yeah,
to all of us, man. It's crazy.
yeah, man. A lot, it's changed. It's changed everything, man. How I communicate with people, friendships. Because I mean,
Yeah,
it flipped everything upside down, man. And we're 5, almost 6 years,
yeah.
since, and it, man, yeah, I struggle on a daily basis. And then I
Even to the
probably should touch on it for those watching, but I kind of reached a crossroads about 4.5 years out that I felt like I needed to. The nature of my work is always have a patient in front of me, so you can only live like that, and it kind of you make a good point. You can only live like that for so long.
right.
You can only do that every day, which I did. Tried to find a solution every day for 4.5 years. You can only do that for so long, man. You can't live. I lived like that for 4.5 years, so I don't know um, what else you would do. But I eventually decided to take a antidepressant, which was Lexapro. Um, after weighing things out, talking to the doc about it, I told him I had a ton of concerns given my history, and decided to take it and just see if it does help. And within 3 days, I felt kind of some similar feelings as I did when I took finasteride. Very just complete derealization, man. Like everything, I was just removed from reality, which is the best way to describe how I felt after taking finasteride.
Right.
It was, you just kind of leave the room and you're wandering around. And then the next few weeks, man, I started getting some of the same symptoms that I got during my initial finasteride crash.
Unbelievable. It's crazy, Damon, because there are guys who take SSRIs while they have PFS, and for some people, it does seem to help them. Not everybody. I mean, this goes back to the volatility of our bodies. You don't know what's going to help you. You don't know what's going to make you worse. So yeah, I've talked to guys who've taken SSRIs, and they say, yeah, it helped me. It helped my mood. It helped me stabilize me a little bit. But then you have other
Sure.
guys like yourself who you end up taking it, and it just completely recrashes your body and puts you back to square one, man.
Sure.
It's just the state of our bodies are just so volatile at this point. And so
Yes, man. And
you
you're putting these drugs are not these drugs, man. They can alter your body on such a level that and just have such like crazy effects. I don't really know how you can make an informed decision to take something like finasteride or an SSRI because I mean they can literally change everything about your body, man.
Yeah,
So some people get do fine on them, some people don't.
yeah,
um, yeah, I don't know. It seems like a coin toss. I don't think we have the tools to say that you're likely to respond to it favorably
right.
or not. So essentially, when you take this stuff, it's a coin toss. You're rolling the dice.
Yeah, it is. One thing you touched on too before the interview, you were talking about how when you had your first crash with finasteride, you said you actually your hair grew back in places that you never even had hair before. I just think that's such an interesting thing. Do you mind just talking a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So I had again very like minor concerns about hair shedding at the time, and then so 24 took it, and I had these crazy symptoms like physically, between skin, muscle, bone loss, vision, you name it. But the one, I guess, positive thing you could say, um, I thought it was very interesting because my natural hair shedding completely stopped. And when I say completely, I didn't see a single hair either on my hand or pillow for the 4.5 years until I took that antidepressant. So I had hair. My hairline actually came down where I had never had hair before. And I showed you pictures before we started.
Yeah, it's
Where,
incredible, man. It's
yeah, I
incredible.
had pictures of all this, man. The whole past 5 years, I've had pictures of
Yeah,
to some extent, whether it was a picture with somebody,
right.
but so that kind of shows. I mean, that um, something changed in my body to some extent where I didn't even have natural hair shedding anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was probably the only positive thing was I'm pretty confident that if I didn't have that secondary crash,
mhm,
I have no reason to believe I wouldn't be 70 with a full head of hair because that kind of showed me that those 4.5 years,
yeah,
it was finding a new normal because my body didn't go back to the state it was before.
right,
Um,
right.
and then, of course, that was all undone after I crashed after Lexapro, because within like 2 months, I had lost like half of my hair density.
After you took Lexapro and you had your second crash, you just started losing hair at that point.
My hair, it became a lot thinner,
Yeah,
and I had like extreme itching,
mm,
dandruff, and shedding on my scalp, which was never an issue before.
yeah,
Finasteride actually turned my head like bone dry,
sure.
literally like a sponge or a Brillo pad. It had the natural oils in my hair completely disappeared.
Yeah, yeah. My hair is so brittle at this point, man. Like it feels like straw when I run my hands through it. It's
Yeah,
honestly it just feels disgusting. I hate to feel my hair
yeah,
at this point.
yeah, and
'Cause
it,
the
it,
texture is completely different. I mean, it's the same thing with like my face. I don't have any natural oil on my face anymore either. My skin is so dry at this point, you know. And I used to have a very oily face. I'm not sure if you had that experience, but
I
yeah,
did prior. I did prior, and that was a big thing with finasteride. Was it turned everything very, very dry.
right, absolutely.
Where I would itch like crazy if I started sweating or went outside,
Yeah,
like insane itching.
yeah. I almost got like I think they call it the DHT itch. I think that's controversial, but like where I was losing hair and it was thinning, like my head was always itching. I haven't had that in like 3 years now, man. I mean, ever
Yeah,
since I crashed, it's crazy.
yeah.
So, well, at this point, Damon, I mean, you're a couple of years out of your second crash. Have you gone to any more doctors? I mean, I'm just curious. Have you gone to any more medical professionals and talked to them? And do they believe you, or have they tried to give you some type of treatment or
Yeah.
anything like that?
Yeah. So since the secondary crash, I had a lot of the same issues, but way worse GI issues.
Mm,
So I ended up, I had like such crazy, within 3 or 4 months, my GI and just like either bowel habits, digestion had changed so drastically that they ended up doing a colonoscopy on me at 29.
wow.
And it was obviously normal. The They didn't find anything organic, no lesions or anything, but that has somewhat improved, but it was so drastic that I literally stopped absorbing nutrients.
Holy crap, man.
And so I went down the whole GI route. I saw an endocrinologist.
Yeah.
My cortisol is chronically high,
Mhm.
whereas with PFS, my cortisol is chronically low.
That's
Uh,
how does that work, man? That makes no sense. That's crazy.
no idea, man. But they're assessing whether or not I have a Cushing's type syndrome.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, I didn't have some of these issues I didn't have prior, but I have now, and it's just rapid onset. I don't know if it's done something to my adrenals.
Sure.
But yeah, I've seen, endocrinologists, general practitioners.
Yeah.
Early with the finasteride stuff, I saw some neurologists, had MRI, CT done.
Yeah.
Of my brain. That was all normal.
Yeah.
And lab tests, they don't tell the full story, because at some points with PFS, my total testosterone was in the 800s at some points.
It's extremely high, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were still having almost like symptoms of low testosterone.
Yeah, I weighed 126 pounds.
And you initially weighed, I think you said 152 before your first crash, right?
Yeah. My natural weight was 152 to 155 prior. And about a year after PFS, I weighed about 126 pounds.
Dude, I mean, how scary is it to drop all that weight despite the fact that you're still eating the same amount of food, the same amount of calories, you're still working out? Because I went through the same thing, man. I dropped 20 pounds in 6 weeks. And I mean, I had never had that type of weight loss before in my life. I got down to
Well,
one.
I thought I was going to die, man. I thought I was dying.
Well, that's the thing, man. I was wondering how much more weight am I going to lose? Like, how much thinner is my body going to get? Am I going to become like emaciated at some point? I mean, it's a horrifying, prospect, obviously. Yeah.
I had a lot of those same concerns because it's like the driver, like you are removed from the driver's seat, man, of how your body's operating. It sounds crazy but I mean, you can't explain this stuff to somebody who hadn't gone through it, man. And that's why you get these. That's the same reason, man. When I heard crazy stories before I took the drug, I thought people were making it up. And then it happens, and then you realize people aren't making it up. And
Yeah, Damon, I think about that a lot, man, because I didn't even know that Propecia Help was even a thing until after I basically crashed, right? Until after I came off the medication. So I didn't get to read any of these stories about some of these crazy symptoms that people were experiencing. So I had no idea that, you could lose bone, your face could change, your skin could become stretchy, you could lose muscle, your cognition could go south, you could develop insomnia, a high-pitched voice. I mean, why would you ever think that was even a possibility? If I had read those things before I took finasteride, I think I would have just thought these people have something else going on, and that's honestly how I give myself some grace, because it's like, I mean, there's no way I couldn't have fallen into this trap at some point in my life, because you look at all the success stories too. I want to be fair. There are people that can take finasteride, a lot of people who have complete regrowth of hair on the top of their head. Okay, good on them, but you just don't think that any of these things can happen. But it's not also just like it's not confined to like one domain, right? Like, it's not just neurological issues, it's not just physical issues, it's not just sexual, it's the whole 9 yards, man. Like you
it's
said,
the whole thing at once. Yeah.
Hey, man, I went to an endocrinologist as well, a neurologist, a urologist. There was one other particular doctor I went to, but I went through like probably 6 or 7 different doctors, man.
Yeah.
And the one doctor, I talk about this a lot, he was actually taking finasteride. The one neurologist, he was a guy in his 60s, and he was looking at my medical charts, and he was like, "Oh, you're taking finasteride. What's that for?" I said, "Oh, for hair loss." And this is, I mean, I was still on it at the time. And he was like, "Oh, I'm glad to hear you're taking that." He's like, "That's great. I've been taking it for 12 years. He's like, "It saved my hair." I'm like, "All right, cool." So, whatever I'm going through right now must not be finasteride related.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just don't know how we had to be the unlucky ones who fall into this subset. But it's real. It happens. It can happen to anybody, and it can happen to people who've been taking it for 10, 15 plus years. So you're not safe from this just because you've been taking it for all that time and you haven't experienced symptoms.
I think it's worth pointing out again, to reiterate to anybody who's had issues from some of these androgenic medications,
Right.
that even if you reach a baseline after a certain period of time, for me, it was 4.5 years.
Yeah.
If you reintroduce another medication and it causes you issues, it can completely change things for you all over again.
That's why I tell people who are recovered in the community, because a lot of people, once they get recovered, they take off in the PFS community. But the fact is, I mean, even if you've recovered, you can still crash again down the road because you happen to be exposed to something that's anti-androgenic. You know, it could be
100%.
lion's mane, it could be saw palmetto. I mean, we had a guy on here recently, a board certified anesthesiologist who took an over-the-counter vitamin supplement that contains saw palmetto, and he crashed, and he's been sick for like 4 years now. You know,
Yeah.
it's just, you're never safe. And even once you're recovered, your body's always going to be in this hypersensitive state. So
Yeah, that's it makes no sense, but it is the truth, man. I've been around the community long enough to the same things that that have been brought up: anti-androgens, lion's mane, saw palmetto.
yeah,
They're all risky. It's risky to take those things,
right,
man or woman.
right, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy, man. So, Damon, I got kind of a personal question here, and if you don't want to answer this, that's okay. I mean, have you had any type of support socially while going through this? Because a lot of guys don't. Yeah, if you don't mind me asking that, and if that's too hard to answer, don't feel the need to.
You mean as far as friends, family?
Yeah, exactly.
You won't. I haven't. My experience with this hasn't been. My friends and family haven't been very receptive.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, you can't. I don't fault them for it because you can't explain this kind of stuff to people.
yeah,
And then, between mental, physical issues, it's not like they're going to be able to help you. All they're going to say is, go to the doctor that prescribed you, which is, I mean, it's logical. But then you get to all these doctors and you realize they can't help you either.
right.
I still have a good few close friends, but yeah, it's strained relationships, man, in every aspect. Over time, you just learn how to navigate it.
Yeah,
But I would say I'm far more. I would say I'm far more socially isolated, and I have less relationships than prior.
I
Um, yeah,
yeah, and I know that's a tough question to answer. Obviously, the only reason I ask that is because this just shows how many layers to PFS there is. Because I've lost friends too, man. My relationships now are strained. Even with the closest people that I've known for years, they're strained.
yeah,
It's not just that you're dealing with the symptoms; you're a completely different person. And I think you said that at one point to the PFS network. I mean, it's not just some symptoms on top of you. It's like a completely different you
oh
altogether.
yeah, yeah. It changes. So my behavior has changed.
Yeah,
Because it's little things, man. It's you're at a restaurant eating with a friend, but there's like alarms going off in your head 24/7, and you
yeah,
can't relax,
right,
which is not normal. And it was, you just kind of, I think about how things would be before all this stuff, and then you would just be in a restaurant just eating with no anxiety because there's no reason to have anxiety.
yeah,
Or I'll just yeah, so I mean, the things that I do on a daily basis and how I interact with people is just completely different, and that's something that doesn't get better.
yeah.
And I've been to a ton of therapy,
Mhm.
psychologists, and that might be the hardest part of it to navigate. I've had a lot of cognitive testing, and I've had I have severe ADHD and OCD symptoms,
Yeah,
a lot of which I did not have prior to all this.
right, right.
So,
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely developed a lot of new, not a lot of new things myself, especially cognitively. I mean, I can't focus on anything at this point. It's tough to have a conversation. I mean, even doing this interview with you can be a little bit tough because you're trying to keep track of everything, but your focus. It's almost like, for me, it's like being perpetually zoned out at all times, and just spacing out and not being aware of anything that's going on around you. You can hear somebody talk, but you're not processing what they're saying necessarily. It takes a lot more effort to interact with people, and you don't have that natural flow, when you're talking to
Right.
somebody. I mean, there's nothing natural about having a conversation anymore. It's really tough. It's really tough.
Yeah. That's my hardest, one of the things that's hardest for me is everything runs together.
Yeah.
Whether it's talking to somebody, it's the time during the day, because you feel the same, which is shit,
Right.
the entire day, no matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're exercising, you walk
Yeah.
outside, you're inside. Being in the sun feels the same as being in my room.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, and for that reason, it's hard to compartmentalize things like work, social life, and different things. And
Right.
I've ran into many issues with it. And the nature of my job being that I see patients,
Yeah.
It's made it very difficult.
I can only imagine that, man. I mean, I work in management, and I talk to people and deal with them all day, and there's nothing easy about that when you have PFS, man. And I used to be a very lively person who could go in and interact and build rapport with people, and it's a challenge now, man. And I can only imagine from your position, you're working very intimately one on one with somebody. That's got to be difficult, man. I can only imagine. So I commend you for being able to push through all that, though, and for being really as successful as you are, because you've done an amazing job, even with dealing with PFS, to get to where you are today. So congratulations on that, man. Really.
I appreciate it, man. That's yeah. I wanted to, even with the other stuff going on, I still wanted to, achieve kind of my goal. And yeah, it's challenging. It's because I could see how it can easily go the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
And it almost did many times. So,
Yeah, I bet.
and it's not a given now. Every day is still maintenance.
Right.
I wish that I could say my life is stellar now and everything's great. In many ways, some days I'm kind of still at square one with all this.
Yeah.
So I feel for guys that are just now going through it, or kind of in the early stages of it. Some things I can say will get better, but for me, it wasn't anything specifically. A few things improved marginally, but overall, it was kind of just getting comfortable with a new normal.
Yeah.
As terrible as that sounds, and it is terrible. It's a terrible thing.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man. It's hard. It's hard to accept. It really is. So, Damon, we really appreciate you coming on the channel, man, and giving everyone an update on where you currently are in life. Obviously, again, you went on the PFSNetwork channel about 3 or 4 years ago, and you were very active on the forums when you first got this about 6 years ago. And a lot of people ask about you, and they wanted to know kind of what's going on. So, we can't thank you enough for coming on here, man. Before we hop off, do you have any closing statements or anything else you'd like to tell the audience?
I think that covered everything, man. I appreciate your time and you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Damon, man.
Thank you.